When German intelligence first heard reports of a new British fighter outrunning their best aircraft at low altitude, they dismissed it as a misunderstanding. But the Hawker Tempest was no rumor, was a shockwave aimed straight at the Luftwaffe. What Germany uncovered in the months that followed reshaped the reality of air combat. Early Luftwaffe reports in 1944 sounded impossible. Pilots returning from missions over France described a British aircraft accelerating away from FW-190s at altitudes where German fighters were supposed to dominate. Intelligence officers blamed misidentification or combat stress, convinced Britain lacked the industrial capacity to field another, a cutting-edge fighter, while mass-producing Spitfires and Typhoons. As sightings increased, denial became impossible. Bf-109G pilots reported being overtaken in dive is an unheard-of scenario. The aircraft's silhouette matched nothing in Allied inventories: a large fuselage, chin radiator, and wings thicker than expected for a high-speed interceptor. Analysts searched for matching RAF prototypes and found none. By mid-1944, reality set in. Joseph Pips Priller, one of the Luftwaffe's most respected fighter commanders, delivered a blunt verdict after a near-fatal encounter. The Tempest was faster at combat altitudes, carried devastating firepower, and most dangerously could disengage at will. That final advantage shattered German air doctrine, which depended on controlling when to fight and when to escape. The Tempest flipped that balance entirely, leaving German command with no tactical counter, no time to adapt, and units entering combat unprepared as the threat grew deadlier by the day, despite how alarming the early encounters were. Germany had not yet grasped just how disruptive the Hawker Tempest would become, because something far worse was about to expose the Luftwaffe's weaknesses in ways no one anticipated. German leadership believed the V-1 flying bomb would shatter British morale. A low-flying, fast and erratic weapon designed to evade interception. With early estimates suggesting most would reach London untouched, that confidence collapsed almost overnight once Tempest squadrons were assigned to V-1 defense. Flying at over 400 miles per hour at treetop height, the Tempest gave RAF pilots a speed margin no other Allied fighter could match, allowing them not just to catch V-1 south, but to overtake them, maneuver alongside, and destroy them with controlled precision. Gun camera footage later reviewed by German intelligence confirmed the brutal truth. The Tempest turned V-1 interception into a systematic process. Between June and September 1944, Tempest units destroyed hundreds of flying bombs, more than any other Allied aircraft, revealing a catastrophic flaw in Germany's wonder weapon strategy. Engineers analyzing the footage realized the V-1 had been designed around a fatal assumption that no piston-engine fighter could catch it at sea level, and that assumption was now obsolete. The psychological blow inside the Luftwaffe was severe. As officers privately acknowledged, the campaign had become a costly failure rather than a strategic breakthrough. Yet the Tempest's role in neutralizing the V-1 was only a warning, because German pilots were about to face an even greater humiliation when their long-awaited jet fighters, the Me-262 and He-162, met the Tempest under real combat conditions, where their greatest weakness was exposed. While jets boasted terrifying top speeds on paper, they were slow and vulnerable during takeoff and landing, operating well below 300 miles per hour, exactly where the Tempest was at its most lethal wrath. RAF squadrons quickly learned to patrol near known German jet bases, waiting for the exact moments when Me-262s were most vulnerable. As the jets attempted to accelerate off the runway, Tempest swooped in before they could gain enough speed to escape. With gun camera footage showing jets destroyed within seconds of attempting to climb, German debriefs were unusually candid. Some pilots admitted they felt more exposed in jets than in piston fighters because Tempests hunted the transitional phases of flight, while others complained that the slow throttle response of jet engines made evasive maneuvers nearly impossible. A Tempest could dive, fire, and disengage before a Me-262 pilot could even react. The psychological impact was devastating. Germany had promoted the Me-262 as proof of technological supremacy. Yet a British piston fighter was repeatedly shattering that illusion. Internal memos called for new defensive tactics. But with resources stretched thin and jet bases predictable, little changed. Then came the most demoralizing blow of all. When a relatively intact Hawker Tempest MKV crash-landed in occupied France in August 1944, the Luftwaffe treated it as a prize and rushed it to Rechlin, Germany's top testing facility, expecting a conventional airframe with minor refinements. Instead, engineers discovered an aircraft they could not hope to replicate. The Napier Sabre engine alone was a revelation in H-24 configuration with sleeve valves that allowed higher RPM, reduced vibration, and exceptional airflow efficiency, producing over 2,180 horsepower. Germany had explored sleeve valve engines, but abandoned them as too complex, while Britain was manufacturing them at scale. Material analysis deepened the shock, revealing high-grade chromium molybdenum steels, advanced aluminum alloys, and precision bearings that German industry could no longer produce due to shortages and Allied blockades. What truly crushed remaining confidence was the manufacturing precision, its self-tight tolerances, consistent quality, and production standards that exposed the widening industrial gap Germany could no longer close. The Tempest's wing ribs and spars were machined to tolerances so precise that Germany's wartime factories, dispersed, bombed, and stripped of skilled machinists, could not come close to matching them. Even the control surfaces revealed advanced fabrication techniques that German analysts admitted were beyond their current mass production capabilities. The final technical report, spanning 127 pages, ended with a devastating conclusion. Germany could not reproduce the Tempest in less than 18 to 24 months, even under ideal industrial conditions, and by 1944, conditions inside the Reich were anything but ideal. The war would be over long before a German equivalent could ever reach production. What the Luftwaffe had not anticipated was that this technical defeat would quickly turn into something even more alarming, a realization that Britain was not only ahead in engineering, but overwhelmingly superior in industrial scale. The engineering analysis alone was demoralizing. But true panic set in when German intelligence examined British production figures. The Tempest was not a rare elite aircraft. It was being built in staggering numbers. Britain was producing more than 100 Tempests per month, while simultaneously turning out Spitfires, Mosquitoes, and Lancasters, at volumes Germany could only dream of. Allied bombing was supposed to cripple British industry, yet intelligence reports revealed the opposite. Britain was manufacturing more aircraft, at higher quality, using materials Germany no longer possessed, all from an industrial base far less damaged than the shattered factories of the Reich. Germany's material shortages compounded the crisis. Nickel, chromium, tungsten, and high-grade aluminum alloys were scarce or depleted, making a Tempest-class fighter impossible to sustain even on paper. Britain, protected by Allied naval dominance, enjoyed uninterrupted global supply chains. The workforce situation was just as grim. Britain retained a skilled, stable labor force, while Germany had lost tens of thousands of experienced machinists and technicians to conscription, bombing, and forced relocation, leaving behind undertrained workers. Scattered across improvised facilities, the exact opposite of what precision aircraft production demanded. Luftwaffe. Economic analysts eventually admitted what once seemed unthinkable. Britain's aviation industry had surpassed Germany in scale, materials, precision, and logistics. The Hawker Tempest was not merely a superior fighter, it was proof that Germany had already lost the industrial war. By early 1945, the Luftwaffe's decline was no longer gradual, but catastrophic. And the Tempest stood at the center of that realization. German commanders had long known that technology alone could not guarantee victory. But the Tempest revealed something far worse. Germany no longer possessed the industrial capacity. Strategic flexibility, or pilot quality, needed to regain control of the skies. Every major Luftwaffe weakness converged in the face of this single aircraft. German doctrine relied on altitude advantage and speed control, with fighters like the Bf-109 and Fw-109 designed to dictate engagements. By diving in and climbing away, But the Tempest shattered that foundation. Its brutal low-altitude acceleration, rugged airframe, and heavy armament allowed RAF pilots to decide not only when combat began, but how it ended, leaving German fighters unable to escape or counterattack below 15,000 feet. Even Germany's advanced projects offered no salvation. The TA-152 excelled only at high altitude. The Do-335 remained largely experimental, and the Me-262 and He-162 arrived too late, with too few trained pilots and too little fuel to matter. The situation was worsened by pilot attrition. Britain continued producing experienced aviators with hundreds of training hours, while Germany, crippled by fuel shortages and relentless losses, rushed barely trained pilots into combat. The outcome was inevitable. Even when German aircraft were theoretically capable, the crews flying them were not. With airfields destroyed, fuel reserves collapsing, and production strangled by bombing and material shortages, the Luftwaffe could no longer sustain a meaningful defense. Tempest operated with near impunities, courting bombers, destroying ground targets, intercepting V-1S, and hunting jets. Germany's final tactical directives said it plainly: avoid combat with Tempests unless unavoidable. For an air force built on offensive doctrine, this was an admission of defeat. Yet the Tempest's greatest impact went beyond tactics or technology. It exposed an irreversible truth. Germany was no longer fighting an equal enemy, but one advancing faster than it could adapt. From engineering superiority to operational dominance, the Hawker Tempest forced Germany to confront limits it could no longer overcome, marking the quiet collapse of its air war.